My avoidant ex is in therapy and they still discarded me anyway. That's something that's not all that uncommon to hear. This person is actively in therapy, but they still abruptly ended the relationship without any coherent explanation, just vague excuses. And your heart is shattered and it makes no sense. You showed up for this person. You were loving, kind, giving. You treated them well, and everything seemed wonderful, and then they abruptly ended. So it feels like this therapy is not benefiting them at all. So what gives? It's not that uncommon for an avoidant to go to therapy. Now, some avoid that. Some will completely write off therapy and say it doesn't work, or they're not interested, or they don't need it. Those are the ones that are so entrenched in their own avoiding that they don't even want to go to therapy, because that means that they'd have to dig deep and self-reflect and be vulnerable, and they don't want anything to do with that. But there are ones that do go to therapy. It can be very beneficial, or it can actually be counterproductive. It all depends on the avoidant, and it can depend a bit on the therapist too. If the avoidant really wants to heal, if they really want to change, if they want to learn to become more secure, if they want to learn new skill sets like communication, learning how to become emotionally available, things like that, they can absolutely do it. There are plenty of avoidants that do work towards becoming secure and make a ton of progress. But they have to want it. They have to want it badly enough to do the work. And that means being willing to be vulnerable with the therapist, to actually open up and go to places where they don't normally feel comfortable going. But if they want it badly enough, they can absolutely do it. And it also helps to have a therapist that understands avoidant attachment, whether it's dismissive or fearful. Some therapists don't have that great of an understanding or knowledge of attachment theory in general, and they don't really understand what exactly this person is dealing with. That is why it's best to go to a psychotherapist. They generally have a much better understanding of this stuff. But in many cases, the avoidant actually goes to therapy to get validated by the therapist, meaning to get the therapist on their side and to see things from their point of view to justify the avoidant's fears and behaviors. In other words, going into the therapy office and painting their ex in a consistent negative light, or their current partner in a consistent negative light, to justify the upcoming discard, to justify leaving the relationship. Because when they constantly say bad things about their partner or portray them in a consistently negative light, they may even get encouraged by the therapist to walk away from the relationship. So now they feel validated, because the avoidant is a person that really relies heavily on external validation. They don't know how to internally validate themselves. It comes from a low self-esteem and a lack of self-worth. This comes from consistent childhood emotional neglect. Growing up in households where you don't talk about feelings, or they weren't told I love you by their parents very much. Things like that. They grow up to personalize that neglect and feel like there's something wrong with them, that they're defective. It creates this deep wound of shame and a low self-esteem. So because of this shame, this feeling that they are something wrong, that they're defective, this low self-esteem, they rely heavily on the validation of others to feel better about themselves. So getting that validation from the therapist can help them feel justified in abruptly ending the relationship or discarding their partner or slow fading out. And now they don't have to self-reflect and take accountability, because they got validated by the therapist that this was an okay thing to do. But in many cases, they're not accurately portraying their partner. They're not being fair to their partner at all. They're giving a very slanted point of view that really stems from their own insecurities. They may have a wonderful partner that is consistent, emotionally available, and loving. But this triggers the fears in the avoidant, because emotional closeness doesn't feel safe. Normal, healthy relationship behaviors are very triggering to an avoidant. So this can be very triggering to them, so they look for incompatibilities in their partner. It can be small things. This person likes coffee and I prefer energy drinks. This person likes Italian food, but I prefer Thai, things like that. Now that they found those incompatibilities, they go to the therapist and get the therapist to validate their opinion that it's time to leave. Now they feel justified. And then, if you're the partner of the avoidant, you think they're in therapy, you think they're working on themselves, you think they're going to become better communicators, more secure, be able to be more vulnerable with you, really open up, but instead, you get blindsided. You get the rug pulled from under your feet and you get your heart absolutely shattered. But if you are a consistent, kind, loving, emotionally available partner for the avoidant and you treat them well, and they're in therapy and they still blindside you anyway, it's not a reflection of you. It's not a reflection of your worth. It's not your reflection. It's not a reflection of your value or quality of your partnership. It's a reflection of this person, their own insecurities, and the likelihood that they're going to therapy to get their fears and insecurities validated to justify their upcoming actions and urges to run. Now, it can be possible that they go to therapy and they do make tons of change. They do work towards communicating better. They do become emotionally more available. They are able to be more vulnerable. Those things are absolutely possible. But those only happen when the avoidant truly wants it. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. The only person that can change anybody is themselves. If a person is going to change, they have to want it. No matter how badly you want it for the avoidant, if they don't want it themselves, they're not going to do the work that's required to make the change. Going to therapy is a very important step because it helps build self-awareness and they can learn new tools. But they have to apply it into action. It is behavior that programs the emotional mind. Repetition. The human mind learns in repetition. The more you repeat anything, the more automatic it becomes and the more at the forefront of your mind it becomes. So it's very important that the avoidant take these lessons, apply them into new behaviors, and repeat those new behaviors like communication, not pulling away, opening up, things like that. The more they do it, the easier it gets and the more secure they will feel. But they have to want it. If they're going to therapy for the purposes of getting validated so they can continue to avoid, that is entirely on them. And that is likely what's happening if they blindsided you out of nowhere despite being in therapy.